Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Feeling Seen, the podcast that talks about the movies that make us feel seen. And today is one of those very special days on the podcast where I get the chance to talk to somebody who I have talked to before. There's like a pre-existing connection, or I know their work. Well, this writer-director, I interviewed her for the first time back when her movie Advantageous came out at the Sundance Film Festival in 2015. And since that time, she has gone on to have a incredible career directing a lot of television shows that you know and love, like The Flight Attendant, like Amazon, I think's biggest show ever that it has made, The Boys, one of my favorite shows of all time and one of the best, I feel like, sci-fi shows ever made, The Expanse, Riverdale, gargantuan cultural imprint. Jennifer Phang, you are here. You have directed Descendants, The Rise of Red, a DCOM franchise I also love. What else do the people need to know about you before we get started today?
Oh my goodness. Hello again, Jordan. This has been a bit of a time. It's been an era before, since we've spoken about Advantageous. And it's also hilarious because Advantageous and Descendants of the Rise of Red have themes in common, but also could not be more different.
Yeah, there's a different sheen about them. There's a different tone about them. You're a woman of range.
I am a person of range, yeah. As far as just to answer your question about who I am and where I come from, I was born and raised in the San Francisco Bay Area. I picked up my love for cameras and filmmaking in high school, but it was in college where I started to really dial in and focus on this being a possible career, kind of an artistic pursuit. I started making movies when I was 17 years old, and then happily went to film school. I went to AFI and actually dialed in my craft slowly over time, and then made an independent feature called Half-Life, and then a second independent feature called Advantageous, with some shorts in between. And to our earlier point, Advantageous is about a mother and daughter, trying to survive in a difficult future. And that's how Jordan and I met and bonded, talking about that movie that ultimately went to Netflix, which was super exciting and it's been there for a long time.
That was an early Netflix acquisition. That was and I was rereading the piece that I did with you, and it reading about how wow, could this be a place where audacious independent films like Advantageous can reach a bigger audience faster and more easily? Those optimistic days before the economics of the industry and being in the post-streaming boom, when all those questions were just at the front of our minds.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, it's really fun in retrospect. We were basically doing a day-and-date premiere with Netflix and VOD. Mm-hmm. It was just the most random model. And somehow it worked out for me in terms of exposure, in terms of the world kind of seeing the story and really connecting with the work. Twitter exploded in response to the movie, and that was really rewarding. And in a weird mirror, I'm experiencing the same social media conversation now with Descendants, but in a completely different way. Yeah,
seriously,
I know. I mean, so just for anyone who doesn't know, Descendants: The Rise of Red is a franchise from Disney that landed in my lap in a way. I did have to pitch for it, but I was on The Flight Attendant in Iceland, and I was contacted by an old friend who had loved my work with Half-Life and actually had given me an award in New York City, decades ago. And we'd stayed in touch, and he thought of me when he needed to find a director that could handle the kind of range of skills required for something like Descendants: The Rise of Red. Because, in Descendants 1 through 3, which is a beloved franchise for many, many young people who are probably in their teens or early 20s right now.
I worked on social media for the launch of the first Descendants, and that is where my love of the singer, actor, performer Dove Cameron was born. So Descendants is near and dear to my heart. Brilliant.
Oh my gosh, good. So you know exactly what we're talking about then. Yeah. So her talents, and Kenny Ortega's directing, really made a splash. Every Descendants has, multiple really poppy, fun musical hits that, kids really clinged to and kind of defined their childhood. So the responsibility of kind of picking up the reins and doing a reboot / continuation of the world was definitely heavy. a big, I had big shoes to fill. And there was another level to it, which was we were excited to expand our audience. Okay, what did that mean? Expand the audience? Well, it might mean re-inviting, the original Descendants fans, but also bringing in new ones, who are younger, who knows, from the ages of 7 through 12.
Yeah.
And
whereas like that original strain of fandom, like you said, is probably in their 20s now. And like so many, I know a number of gays in their 30s who are Descendants fans and DCOM diehards. So then like obviously though you're courting like a Disney audience, which is gateway content for a lot of like really little kids. So that's a very interesting line to be walking, to be like, well, obviously it's a children's, but it's like, yeah, but this is also a legacy property that's for people who are like late Gen Zers, like early Gen Zers, and now you're trying to get to Gen Alpha as well. So that's a lot, and those are not necessarily kids speaking the same language.
Exactly. And ultimately I felt like, the priority was actually the younger, the Gen Alpha. I have, nieces and nephews in that space. And the response was of course, they're biased. I am their aunt. But but they're like getting ready to cosplay and super excited, and their respect for me has probably has, I think, exploded exponentially. But and I'm grateful. But yeah, it was definitely a tightrope walk. I think what I'll say is what I brought personally to the Descendants: Rise of Red. Of course, they brought me on because I understood the complexities of mother-daughter relationships, and this is a mother-daughter tale. And of course, my experience working with amazing actors and developing actors and helping young actors kind of navigate, emotional material was, definitely part of my skill set. But also, I had been part of very ambitious visual effects works. Even in Advantageous, we built a world there. Even in Half-Life, we built a world there, on a budget.
The Expanse is one of the best looking shows of the 21st century. The Boys is, that is a high profile, high dollar show. Like you're working with like moneyed material. So like it's there's Advantageous, which is like I remember talking to you about like how bringing in like people you knew from like earlier iterations to like contribute work, and Ken Jeong, I remember interviewing him and being like, I'm just so proud they let me be a part of this, and he was a producer on it. But like you have worked at scale. You have worked at scale.
Yeah, and it's so funny when you work at scale, I guess with larger budgets, with big ambitions. It still feels like you're working on independent film because as things scale up, the ambition scales up from the scripts, from the team, and you yourself, and then people you work with. We all like, working with the best tools and just kind of making things, as close to pristine as we can. So yes, so having kind of navigated both those spaces and worked in a very collaborative environment, that I think experience made me a good fit for trying to do this reboot.
Like, as you said, you have experience with mother-daughters. Like, yes, Advantageous and Rise of Red, very different movies to look at, from the outside. But that was such a key theme. I remember talking to you about, like, the element of it. Like, Advantageous was this movie that is set in a world where, like, unemployment, not great. Men are given preferential treatment in employment because with more time on their hands, men have proven to be more of a liability to society if they are not able to be productive. So the unemployment crisis among women is catastrophically even worse. And at that time, there is also this emergent technology where you can have your consciousness swapped into another body. And me and you talked a lot about Ghost in the Shell when you were putting that, when we were doing that interview. And so a woman, our protagonist, Jacqueline Kim's character, she opts to be part of this experimental procedure, which means sort of forfeiting the shell that she is and she knows and that her daughter knows, but wanting to make this choice for the love of her daughter. And then we have in Rise of Red, we have this character where essentially the tension is like the daughter of the Queen of Hearts who rules with an iron fist over Wonderland. She gets an offer to go to the school where all like the children of fairy tale go, the Auradon Academy. But the Queen of Hearts is going to use this invitation on that her daughter has gotten to invade Auradon and get the vengeance she wants wants based on a terrible thing that happened to her in Ordon before it was Ordon when she was younger. And so, mother-daughter, and the character that you brought for us to discuss, there's a significant mother-daughter element into that dual character choice as well. So this is something that from inspirational text to text you have created originally to ones you have come into and like that are adapting from source material. Tell us about your character and how that theme continues to run through the person to people, I guess, that we'll be discussing today as sort of like the through line of our conversation.
Amazing. Yeah. I'm so glad that this is the format of your show. It's so interesting. Okay. So I picked Boomer from Battlestar Galactica and
Athena.
Yeah. So Athena and Boomer. So Battlestar Galactica, Athena and Boomer. Boomer is, I guess, Sharon Valerii is her original name. She is the Cylon who's passing for a human in the first season of Battlestar Galactica.
You're confused and scared, but it's okay. I'm not a Cylon. I'm Sharon Valerii. I was born on Troy. My parents were Catherine and Abraham Valerii.
We're talking about Battlestar Galactica, the reboot from 2003,
Yes.
2004, something like that.
One of the greatest shows ever made, you guys. Get in on Battlestar Galactica if you haven't yet.
Yes, please. So Boomer, played by Grace Park, and he gets, what's so amazing is that Grace Park also gets to play the other Sharon, who ultimately goes from being named Sharon Valerii to Sharon Agathon because she marries
Hilo.
Thank you, Hilo.
Hilo. Oh, I mean, one of my great screen crushes of all time. Hilo. Oh my God. One of the few good men in the universe, really.
Yeah, she ends up marrying Hilo and having a baby with Hilo, which was her big kind of assignment from being this, infiltrating Cylon.
Get out of the way.
No.
Carl, do not think that I will not shoot.
I'm not gonna let you kill her. Okay? She's carrying my child.
My God, men are so painfully stupid sometimes. How do you know that?
I know, all right? She is not lying.
They lie about everything, Hilo. Their entire existence is a lie. They're not human, Hilo. They're machines. You can't have a baby with a machine.
I don't know what to tell you, okay? But I believe her. It's hard to describe. We've been together a long time. I mean, I know what she is, but she is not like the others. She is not.
Okay, so basically what happens, just to sum that up, Grace Park gets to play two characters. They look the same, they're both Cylons, but they both experience different arcs. Boomer believes she's a human, and then something in her switches, something in her switches on, and she starts having Cylon feelings that are kind of pre-programmed and lay nascent in her body. And she ultimately feels the need to betray the humans, and she feels the call to betray the humans. But what's interesting there is that she struggles because she still has love for many humans.
That would explain how they took us by surprise. They had these replicated humans infiltrating the colonies, laying the groundwork for the surprise attack.
You know, if they were human clones, that means they're capable of complex emotions, maybe even love. Maybe they're misguided in the way that they were indoctrinated, but
Whatever
really...
they are, they're not human. Okay, no human could do the things they've done. Killed billions of innocent people.
So that beautiful struggle, that tragic character of Boomer blew me away when I was, watching it in 2004, 2005, maybe 2006.
That is a note that I have here in my notes, is that Athena and Boomer in combination are like the great tragic arc of the Cylon story. Like, because, like you said, like Boomer ends up in this position where she's a sleeper agent for the Cylons. And if you guys don't know Battlestar Galactica, there's a robot race called the Cylons that were created by humans that, in a sort of classic robot-human clash fashion, rise up as from being slave labor to overthrow their human oppressors, results in a gargantuan robot-human war, ends in a stalemate theoretically. 40 years later, Cylons come back. They're going to annihilate all of the human race, and then the Battlestar Galactica gets away, and it carries people that it basically needs to perpetuate the human race on its own. Boomer is a sleeper agent Cylon within the humans, and Athena comes into the picture when she is meant to replicate, she's meant to sort of impersonate Boomer, and gets into a relationship with Hilo, played by the very handsome Tomo and Pennicott. And so then that, like, Boomer is out of the picture. Athena is with Hilo. It points their stories clash back together, but like Athena is also imprisoned by the humans at a certain point. She is tortured. She is sexually abused. Boomer is having these, like you said, these latent Cylon programming starts to emerge, and she feels the need to sabotage the humans, even though she has love for humans. So she's torn between these two species allegiances. And then you have Athena over on the other end, who gets imprisoned by humans, but then eventually gets like pulled from imprisonment by like our lead human Admiral Adama, and made an officer in the Corps after she has been mistreated by humans. So it's this story of like, her story is that of like two characters torn between species who are aggressed against by the ones that they seek to defend. And it's this like incredible like dueling identities and purposes struggle that both versions of the character have to go through the arc of the show. And it's just heartbreaking so often.
It is heartbreaking. It is. And, you know, it goes without saying to some Asian Americans, but what was exciting to me was seeing Grace Park inhabit a character that was so complex. And then both characters that were so complex. And the you know, throughout, and most people understand when they've seen Battlestar Galactica that it is, in a way, an allegory or a metaphor for everything that we go through as a human race on a regular basis. And so the themes that Boomer, you know, travels through include, identity and loyalty. You know, who is she really? But then kind of she ends up becoming activated as a Cylon, and then tries to kind of be full-blown Cylon. She just gets that. She just goes in and dives in. And it's sad to watch that because you liked her. You loved Boomer when you first met her.
You love her, yes.
Yeah, like Boomer was this badass pilot. She was so sweet. Her character was defined by being a really badass pilot, being a great, you know, ally for the human race, and just duty, the sense of duty. You see her kind of searching for water for the human, so that the human race could survive. And you're just rooting for her, and then something like kind of flips in her. And so while on one level, like, it's really sad, it's also exciting just to experience that complexity through her eyes. And Grace Park did such a great job.
Despite that uniform, it's not your home anymore. I've made my choice, and I know where my loyalties lie. What if I told you that your daughter was still alive? I'd say you were lying, while someone's lying. But it's not me. Hera's alive. At least for now. She's ill and we don't know why. Yeah, right. Walter found her on New Caprica during the evacuation. She's on our base ship right now. From what we could gather, she was hidden at Laura Roslin's school. Which means that she probably planned the whole thing in the first place.
I don't need to listen to this. Watch her.
They let you think that she was dead. You don't do that to a person, you do that to a thing.
That's what your friends think of you, Sharon. You're not one of them. You're a thing.
Something that we talked about the first time I interviewed you was working like Advantageous, and another movie that you talked about that you were developing at the time was like you were working on something that was like an anti-cynicism project, and you were like, I want to make something like for moviegoers who have like kind of given up hope. And then I think with Battlestar, I think too, you are dared to give up on Athena and Boomer. You are dared to give up on both of them. And then when you like them so much and they turn, like you want to be so angry at them, you get so angry at them, but the characters themselves are so rich and the performances on both ends for her are so good that like she never loses you, I would say. Like the hooks are always there. She defies a sin, even as Boomer sort of descends into depression and she becomes suicidal. Like she even manages to like, she sort of rises above and she becomes part of this like Cylon Civil War insurrection where she's like working with a faction of other Cylons to like help work on behalf of the humans to like, you know, improve relations. She's sort of an insurrectionist within the Cylon faction. And despite like the hardships that she endures, she continues to fight.
Tell the old man I owed him one. Doesn't change anything you did, though. No. We all make our choices. Today I made a choice. I think it's my last one.
All right, this is really touching. Can we get the hell out of here?
You should know that your raptor's been destroyed. You can't go back that way. Yeah, well, that's not the plan.
Can you not tell her the plan?
Right.
And I think, too, even like with like what I've read you talking about with Rise of Red, things that drew you to it and themes that drew you to it. I remember you citing this line of like there's a character that like, you know, kind of checks somebody for assuming that a kind character is weak when she cites that kindness as a strength, that even in the face of hardship, there is a character within Rise of Red who is always kind to others and who rises above that which is sort of like put on her. And so I wanted to talk to you about like messy stories like that and feeling so connected to the arc within Battlestar Galactica of something that like defies the binary of good and bad and forces you to exist with the character who gives you so much of both.
Thanks. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I mean, you were referring to the character of young Bridget in Descendants of the Rise of Red. And
yes.
And she, I mean, just what happens in Descendants of the Rise of Red is that Red, the daughter of the Queen of Hearts, and Chloe, the daughter of Cinderella, go back in time and meet their mothers in the past. And it's so wonderful. It has a bit of a Back to the Future vibe. And they discover how different their mothers were from their mothers of present day. And as kids, Red's mother, Bridget, was kind and generous and loving, but was also kind of a victim of bullying because there were bullies, as there often are, that love to target people who they deem as weak. And actually I had a funny conversation with my brother about Bridget because young Cinderella thinks Bridget is strong because she, even if you bully her, even if you're mean to her, she just responds with more kindness. And that takes a lot of strength. And I 100% agree. And I've actually tried to embody those values and it's very, very difficult, but it's a little bit like turn the other cheek, right? And, in this world where we actually believe there should be justice, how do you operate? How do you navigate that? But it's such a beautiful thing to see Bridget, take her passion for cupcakes and baking and try to spread that, donate cupcakes to the entire, Merlin Academy, student body. And there's this beautiful sequence called, to the song Life is Sweeter, but the song is Life is Sweeter When You Are. So there's a little bit of calculation in that, statement. It's not just be sweeter because it's good to be sweet. It's actually be sweet because life is sweeter when you're sweeter. And so it kind of appeals to, people who like to operate in their self-interest. Which is a reality. It's not about like the nascent good in people. It's about like, let's create a world that we want to live in. So that it's practical. It's practical advice. Be sweet because you want the world to be sweet. Once you buy into this idea that being kind actually spreads kindness, you actually reap the rewards in a real, and it has been my experience that you reap the rewards in a genuine way, that people get so inspired by each other's kindness that they end up forgetting about their kind of need to kind of navigate a difficult world and actually end up creating the world where they can be free of that kind of calculation. And I don't mean like that you'll always get that, when you just focus on 100% kindness, but you're more likely to achieve that. And there are these little beautiful kind of oases that people have created for themselves throughout our world, our actual real world, where that does get to exist. So the goal being, can we just keep, going for that kindness?
It's time for a break, but we will be right back with Jennifer Phang and more on Battlestar Galactica, along with some additional robot talk, my very favorite. And then at the end, I will have one quick thing. It's a bit of a local announcement, but I want to shout out the Big Bad Film Festival that is coming to Los Angeles for its second year, so we will just touch on that really quick at the end of the show. Stick around.
I'm Jesse Thorne.
I just don't want to leave a mess.
This week on Bullseye, Dan Aykroyd talks to me about the Blues Brothers, Ghostbusters, and his very detailed plans about how he'll spend his afterlife.
I think I'm going to roam in a few places, yes. I'm going to manifest and roam.
All that and more on the next Bullseye from MaximumFun.org and NPR.
Hello, teachers and faculty. This is Janet Varney. I'm here to remind you that listening to my podcast, The JV Club with Janet Varney, is part of the curriculum for the school year. Learning about the teenage years of such guests as Allison Brie, Vicki Peterson, John Hodgman, and so many more is a valuable and enriching experience. One you have no choice but to embrace because, yes, listening is mandatory. The JV Club with Janet Varney is available every Thursday on Maximum Fun or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you. And remember, no running in the halls.
Welcome back to Feeling Seen. I've been speaking with Jennifer Phang about movies, mothers and daughters, and two characters from the show Battlestar Galactica, both played by Grace Park, Boomer and Athena. Let's jump right back in. You have these dual characters of Athena and Boomer, right, who are subjected to terrible treatment and hardship, even by the people and communities that they choose allegiance to. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to hear from you about, like, watching something as a fan of the show or as a creator yourself, like watching, like, the way that challenge is permitted to be presented to the audience and kind of, like, grants the audience the permission to be really smart and to watch this as though, like, no, we don't need to spoon feed them like an easily likable or an easily digestible character, because Athena and Boomer, like, that arc is difficult and you want to, like, curse Boomer to the heavens at certain points. Yeah. But she still, like, ultimately is part of an insurrection force that is fighting for, like, a better resolution to the wars between these two species, and is, like, part of destroying something that, like, perpetuates the Cylons, like their replication machine. Like, her and Athena end up in, like, ultimate battle with one another. And I wanted to hear from you about, like, as a creator, where, like, the stimulation comes from being able to watch something that affords that sort of challenging nature to these characters, particularly within an actor who is, like, especially at that time in the 2000s, we were not necessarily famous for handing, like, a smorgasbord of complex, challenging, nuanced roles to Asian American actresses.
Right. I think that every actor knows that they never are allowed to judge themselves, their own characters. And I think that is the key to pretty much all of good storytelling. Everyone operates in a weird way out of love. And love could be for your people. Love could be for your family, your tribe. It's really exclusively love for yourself. It can seem like it. You know, we have a lot of stereotypical characters in our minds that are just in love with themselves, right? But it comes from having had, people are sometimes in love with themselves because they've been hurt, or their parents have told them that the only way to function in this, in a cynical way, the only way to function in this world is to love yourself first. And I have no problem with that concept at all. I think it's an important concept. but, can lead to some pretty bad relationships if your priority is only 100% yourself. And just because it's hard to relate to, because, people do actually respond well to kindness. When I think about the kind of groundbreaking nature of Boomer and Athena's character, with Boomer, at first we were super disappointed, right? That she, it's incredible to see her fight, her kind of Cylon nature calling her. And then when you lose that kind of sympathetic part of her, who's a team player, who loves the humans, you feel like she's lost. And then immediately you're introduced to Sharon, the other Sharon, and you're kind of watching Athena, the other Cylon, kind of seduce Hilo but then ultimately fall in love with Hilo in a really genuine way. So you have that kind of character, the other side of her, ameliorating that pain. But you lose Boomer for a while, and then you reconnect with her, and then to your point, she actually ends up kidnapping Hera, who's the baby of Hilo and Athena, and it really freaks out. Of course, Athena and Boomer has her, and Boomer's grumpy, and she's transporting this kind of other baby, this baby that could have been hers but isn't, and she's just not she's a stereotypical bad parent or bad guardian, and she's just grumpy and yelling. But ultimately, she goes face to face with Hera and has real moments where she actually speaks to her own yearning. Boomer speaks to her own yearning for a home, her own daughter, a place in the country where she could have been at peace.
Do you know what I do sometimes when I'm sad? I go to this special place. House where I wanted to live with a man that I loved. It's set in the middle of this beautiful forest, and the sun shines through the windows all day long.
And I find that just incredibly moving as a concept. Someone who's a warrior, who's chosen to, commit pretty drastic acts like kidnapping a child and taking them away from their parents, is doing it out of pain, and out of a need for value. But the truth of that is that we're all children inside, and we all just want to be surrounded by love and or peace. And that breaks the heart, because just like there's this metaphor out there that everybody believes that they are the Star Wars rebellion, that everyone believes that there's Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia, and no matter what nation you're from, religion you're from, you believe you're the hero in your own journey. That is what's happening with Boomer and Athena. So the tragedy of what Boomer has lost is pretty intense. And it's understandable on another level. It's also interesting because her evolution into being a full-blown Cylon almost feels like, a sense of extremism. And it's not helped by the fact that she's abused and murdered by the humans once they figure out that she's a Cylon. Instead of them nurturing her and taking care of her, they just become like this kind of angry mob, and literally they assassinate her. And her last thing she says before she passes away for the first time is,
Yes, because she's a Cylon, she can be replicated.
Yeah, so before she passes away and gets replicated, she says, "I love you, Chief," which is her first husband, and that is just so heartbreaking and believable.
Hey. I love you, Chief.
And Athena, at first, my getting used to this new Athena when she, falls in love with Hilo, she felt a little too Pollyanna-ish in the sense that she was simple. She was like, I am bad, but actually I want to be good. Actually, I love you. Actually, I love you and this baby. And actually, I actually prefer the humans. It's very quick that you kind of have to adapt to this new version of Sharon.
Yeah.
But over time, to your point earlier, you mentioned, how ultimately she comes clean. She says, actually, I'm a Cylon. and everyone has to deal with the ramifications of what it means to have someone who's been lying to you this entire time and actually acted in good conscience and has saved human lives. And she truly, ultimately, it's kind of like there's a very, again, I say this all the time. My dad's an immigration attorney, so I'm very aware of what it's like for people to immigrate to America and declare their loyalty and their citizenship here, and then how you have to learn the Pledge of Allegiance, and learn, you have to be able to recite, I don't know, the first paragraph or something of the Declaration of Independence. Yeah. I don't even know what it takes, but I have that privilege because I was born here, so I don't have to worry about what my loyalties are. But they put you through this test of where your loyalties are, and it's heartbreaking on another level because very few actual natural born citizens need to go through that same test. We just
absolutely. I could 100% give you the Pledge of Allegiance right now. I could not recite to you like the beginning of the Bill of Rights.
In
its like actual language.
And then if English is your second language, how hard is that? So I don't know if they still have those requirements anymore, but I remember hearing about that and going, oh, that's pretty intense. And my mother had to do it, she had to do some version of that. And then you have to kind of overcompensate and demonstrate your loyalty to your new hosts, your new family. And that's what Athena inhabits, right? That kind of undying loyalty, even when she's being abused by, the kind of more extreme haters who are humans. They literally, she has to deal with sexual abuse, and she gets saved by her two versions of husbands. It's like it's an incredible, and it's this incredibly weird, like otherworldly experience. But within that strangeness, you get these very familiar metaphors of, how people like to take their insecurities out on people who seem other, people who seem foreign. And then there's another problem that she inhabits, which is she's a little bit of a threat because she's an exceptional pilot. She's an exceptional warrior. And how do you even trust that? She looks different. And that's a fantastic metaphor for the overachieving model minority issue that Asian Americans continuously have to grapple with, in today's society. How do you fit in? How do you
be the best, but don't be so good that I'm worried about you.
100%. 100%. You cannot be an exceptional Asian American without having some blowback somewhere. And that I experienced that throughout most of my childhood. And I'm not saying I'm exceptional, but I, did study and do homework. And so it was like, oh my God, you're doing your homework. Oh my gosh, she, got an A on an exam. Oh my God, she's a terrible person. She's a nerd. She's an outsider. She's crazy.
Right. Yeah.
It's just, it was really interesting. I mean, that of course evolved, but that is the human instinct is to kind of beat up on people who are a threat, if you can.
Well, and you like myself, a daughter of a mother. What is it narratively that compels you about this? You seem to have gone back to this intermittently throughout your career, which suggests it's still fascinating to you, or it's still like an interesting challenge to you. And so, what is it about that? Why so?
I think as a daughter of a mother, I got a lot of life lessons from her in a piecemeal kind of way. My mom was an immigrant from Vietnam who was a kind of special in that she got to come and go to college in the United States. And all this was happening during the Vietnam War. And the blessed people that took her in, her foster family, the ABC News, the scholarship program, they all, were kind of holding her and her peers up as, images of Vietnamese people who weren't enemies, who were human.
Wow.
And she had a lot to prove too in having been in a war where, she was faced with a lot of Americans who she would actually help in hospitals, but also had to fear at the same time. Because she looked just as Vietnamese as the North Vietnamese and the South Vietnamese, right? So you don't know what this kind of occupying force is going to do to you, especially when they come in with large helicopters and weapons. So I think my mom had to navigate her belonging here in the United States, and found communities that she felt comfortable with, both within the Vietnamese community and within like kind of the American community at large. And as I grew up, whether it was in, I also spent some time in Malaysia, but I spent time in Malaysia, there's a little bit more of a traditional patriarchy, or there was at least, and I'll say it probably still exists, traditional patriarchal structure that still exists in the United States, but just in a different form. She's had experience in both kinds of cultures. She would always stress upon me, be independent, never rely on a man, because you need to be able to sustain yourself. And so that idea of independence was kind of she reminded me that as she was driving me to school every day or driving me back from swim practice every day. And then there was the other part of it, which is work extremely hard and have a lot of fortitude, take care of your mental health first. Your mind is nothing without your body, blah, blah, blah. Like so many things she would say to me that I would partially reject as a rebellious teenager, but also it's in there. It's still in there. Like it's always in the back of my mind. And and then also how to be kind, how to navigate social situations, how to stay informed, read the newspaper, she would tell me, listen to the news. She would always listen to the news, and it was really boring for me. I wanted to listen to like New Kids on the Block or, Belle Biv DeVoe or something, I guess she was she did everything for, my future. She even supported me as a filmmaker behind my father's back when he wasn't feeling that supportive. He ultimately became supportive, but at first, it was natural for him to want me to kind of do something more promising, more secure, like be a lawyer or doctor, as many Asian Americans usually experience. Dentist, lawyer, doctor, accountant, pharmacist. Those are thankfully in this new world where we're kind of having to contend with our relevance as humans, and also kind of coming up against the question of artificial intelligence, and taking the place of more functional jobs. I think that for a little while, my job is somewhat safe, because it relies a little bit, just in that it relies on, literally my humanity is, speaks for itself as a creative. And so being directed by a robot isn't going to happen in the next probably 3 to 4 years. But we shall see. But I still believe that we as humans respond better to other humans than we do to, kind of automated thinking and regurgitation of things we already know, knock on wood.
I am a real robot cinema enthusiast, and I feel just based on our conversations, you're at the very least, if not a robot cinema enthusiast, a robot curious individual, talking here about Battlestar and obviously Advantageous and Ghost in the Shell, a conversation we had at the time talking about Advantageous. What is the compelling interest to you in that porting of consciousnesses? And one of the great things about robot cinema is that it is a perfect vehicle for the metaphor of the oppressed person versus their oppressor. It's a perfect metaphor for liberation struggle. And then in movies like Terminator, it's the aftermath of that liberation where it's like, hey, guess what? We were your slaves, but now we have overtaken you and you have to fight back for your humanity. In a movie like Her, the robots, the AIs just fucking remove themselves and create a new dimension. And they're like, you guys don't get us, so we're going to go away. So what for you is sort of the renewable energy of that, consciousness and human consciousness and synthetic shell tension?
Over the years, I've let go of this need to celebrate, the essential amazingness of humanity, mostly because I understand that humanity be complex, that we all know humans that disappoint us. So many. But we also know so many humans that we celebrate. And for me, what I've often found myself gravitating towards is genuine goodwill and, in a sense, innocence. We all love children and puppies and babies, because they remind us of our essential beauty and our innocence. And we loved it when we played in a sandbox, or, even now, like, I play board games and I'm just the happiest person ever because I'm just playing, right? The stakes are super low and we're just enjoying each other's company and also celebrating each other's victories. Like, that beauty, like, I'm a huge game show nerd right now. I love watching the Olympics. I love this idea of celebrating each other's, like, amazingness, whatever it is, whatever talent. And that is the beauty of humanity, right? That in our diversity, we have different strengths. There's this fantastic commercial for the Olympics that I'm sure you've seen where, these kids are trying to, like, inhabit their parents' dreams by doing the sports that their parents want to do. But then the parents like, how is Taekwondo? And he's like, it's fine, And then the kid, the dad picks up on the fact that the kid doesn't like Taekwondo and then ends up driving him to the lesson of his dreams at a breakdancing studio. And that, like, beautiful metaphor for just, like, it's everyone has a talent, a place where they can excel. And as we expand the Olympic categories, we get to celebrate different kinds of talents more and more.
Yeah.
So that, I was about to go super negative, but I actually ended up not being able to help myself and went super positive, which is a metaphor for pretty much everything about me. Like, my idealism takes over after, like, 2 minutes of cynicism, like 1 minute of cynicism. I'm like, no, people actually are the heroes.
Yeah, you're like, I've really given up on the wonder of humanity. You're like, but here's the thing about the wonder of humanity that I do need to talk about. However.
Yeah, right. So that's the thing. That's why the Boomer and the Athena metaphors also make sense to me, is because they coexist inside me. The innocence, the optimism, the belief in other people, the idea of everybody being a hero and the best version of yourself is that hero, versus the cynicism, that the kind of disappointment that we all kind of have to experience when we actually face the real world and have to kind of pick our battles or pick our sides, which is the worst thing. Again, when we go back to Athena, we go back to Boomer, they were more the pure versions, of humanity who were not so calculating, I think, and ultimately, like, suffered for it, because they believed in ideals. I think I saw some podcast that talked about how Sharon, Agatha, and Hilo were the true heroes, and that's actually true. They believed in love, humanity, their daughter, and the human race so strongly, and they were constantly torn apart because of that commitment to their causes.
We should note that 8, she is Cylon 8, is the, like, mother of all of the future of humanity. Like, she is, like, all humanity, it descends actually from 8 through her daughter Hera. So she is a very big deal.
Yes.
That reminds me too of in AI with, like, Haley Joel Osment, and how, like, humanity in that movie, like, he is essentially, in his pursuit of being a real boy, is humanity in its kind of purest form, as we like to consider ourselves, I think, because he learns that, like, his purpose was to be created to love, because to love is the ultimate human thing. But what we learn through our little journeying hero is that to be human it's not exclusively, but it can be to be in pain, to be longing, to be yearning, to be hoping to be loved as you love. And I feel like that, to me, is like a companion piece to what you're saying about with Boomer and Athena. And to me, honestly, just proves that robots are human beings. Robots are people. Robots are people too, is a common refrain of mine, and so this whole conversation is just reaffirming to me that robots are people too.
But they don't get to take our jobs, damn it.
Yeah. But it's still the South Park episode. They took our jobs.
It's so tough. It's so tough.
It's so tough.
It is really tough. You put it so well that being human is kind of coexisting with pain, having pain, but pain is the other side of love. And that's okay. And that's okay because, you know, love includes having people in your life, losing them. And then, you know, I'd love to be at peace with, you know, the loss that we have to experience in our lives. It's very hard to be. And that's okay. That's okay. I actually got to work with Haley on The Boys here earlier mentioned, like he.
Yeah. Oh, that's so awesome. I want to see more of him. He's an excellent actor.
He's brilliant.
Like Haley Joel Osment rocks.
He rocks, but he's so wise too. Like, of course he is. He, you know, has navigated an industry that's really crazy and interesting, filled with different kinds of geniuses and personalities. And so the time I spent with Haley was wonderful. I just felt like I was looking to the face of a very wonderful person and also a very wise person.
Well, I mean, shoot, if I just keep going, I'm just going to keep having this conversation with you, and instead of the interview coming to a close. So I thank you so much, Jennifer, for coming on and for agreeing to talk to me again. It's been so great to chat with you again, and for you to take the time. I've loved this expansive chat.
Same, Jordan. It's been a wonderful reunion with an awesome artist, host, person, you know, so I hope we get to do this again soon.
One more big thank you to Jennifer Phang, and really thank you to Feeling Seen for reconnecting me with Jennifer Phang. Descendants: The Rise of Right is streaming now on Disney+. Jennifer's 2015 film Advantageous, which came up a lot today, is still out there on Netflix, so go find it and support that independent cinema. And if you want to catch up on Battlestar Galactica, it is currently on Amazon Prime. I once had a friend watch it after I recommended it to her in a total of 10 days. See if you can match her speed and binge Battlestar Galactica. And now, that one quick thing before I go. Yes, it is a local LA shout out. We have friends and fans all over the world, of course, but I'm a big action movie fan, as you guys know, and there are a lot. My twin loves in cinema, horror and action. There are a lot of horror festivals out there, and they expand their purview into, you know, a variety of sort of genre adjacent, genre blend, genre hybrid movies. The movie genre 1,000 times. But action tends to get slotted into some of those festivals, and that's really cool. Movies like Kill, movies like Headshot, you know, probably anything by Iko Uwais, The Raid, things like that. But you don't really have high-profile, dedicated action film festivals. But there is a little burgeoning fest that could, called the Big Bad Film Fest. This is its second year. It plays at the Look Cinema in Glendale, and it is 2 days and a night, a Friday through Sunday, of action spectacular programming. It really stumps for like independent, grassroots, DIY action, stunt people coming together, making shorts. It has a really robust shorts program festival that it plays. It's got premieres that it's rolling out, both like a world premiere and there's a regional West Coast premiere. It's got plays some big hits. There is a Pierce Brosnan Bond movie playing at this little weekend stint, and there is also, as I just mentioned, Iko Uwais in the blistering, cut you to pieces, grind your bones to dust movie The Night Comes For Us that is playing on the big screen as a Netflix release. That is a big deal to see it big and large. And yeah, if you're around in the LA area, go see some action movies at Big Bad. It happens the weekend of August 23rd. August 23rd, I think that is correct. And it's a chance to go support an upstart film festival that is drilling down on action cinema, and we don't have a lot of dedicated spaces where that can happen. So that is my stump to you for the Big Bad Film Fest, and that is our show. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at FeelingSeenPod, or send us an email at feelingseen@MaximumFun.org. If you want to follow me, I'm Jorcrew on Twitter. Our theme music is by Andrew Epen. The show is produced by Marissa Flaxbart. Our senior producers are Kevin Ferguson and Laura Swisher, and this is a production of Maximum Fun.
Maximum Fun,
a worker-owned network
of artist-owned shows,
supported directly by you.